everyone, Karen Roby and EdBot here for ZDNet, talking about something today really important for a lot of folks here to pay attention to, switching from Google Chrome to Microsoft Edge, of course. And Ed, we've talked about this before just a couple weeks ago, and now a great list you've put together of some 10 steps to make this a little bit easier for folks as they're making this switch. I guess a good place to start here, though, right out of the gate is why now?
Well, I think, the main reason is that Microsoft is going to be automatically updating people from the old Edge, what they call the legacy Microsoft Edge browser, to the new Edge browser, which is based on Google's open source Chromium project. And so it's very much compatible with Google Chrome. And I think why now is, not just because it's being automatically updated, but it's also been 6 months since this was officially released to the public after a pretty long beta test. And I've had enough chance to work with it. And I've also been paying attention to some of my fellow journalists who have been making the same recommendation to people. So I think it's sort of proved itself out there in the real world. And if that automatic update comes, it's an opportunity for people to say, okay, I'm going to try this as my default browser for a while and see whether I like it. And of course, if you don't like it, you can always switch back. But this is a good opportunity for people to try moving away from Google. A lot of people want to do that because they have problems with Google's approach to privacy, Google's approach to the way it handles user data. And especially for people who are already using Microsoft software like Office 365, there are some advantages to it. It's actually a better choice for some people.
Yeah, most certainly. And the beauty of you having gone through all this again is that you can put these lists together for people to help maybe make it just a little simpler for them, to work through the steps. So I know you've got some screen sharing here to do for us to help walk us through. So I'll just let you take it away here if you want to go through and highlight some of those important steps that you want folks to learn more about.
Great, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the very first step is once this update comes, you're going to be on what's called the public release channel. And you'll get a new version comes out every 6 weeks with updates coming occasionally to address security and reliability issues. But there is another option, and I'm thinking especially of the kind of people who read ZDNet tend to be more technically sophisticated. And so I want to encourage people to take a look at maybe installing a second version of Edge as well. And these are called the insider release versions. So you can get the beta channel, which skips you one release ahead, so you can see what's coming up next. You can go to the dev channel where you get a new update every week, or you can go to the Canary channel if you're really crazy and you want to get a new update literally every day. Now, the good news is you don't have to choose one of these over your public release. You can install them side by side and you can switch back and forth between them. So if you want to use the public release for most of your browsing, but you occasionally want to dip in and see what's coming up next, you can do this with one of the insider builds, okay? Second thing, really important part of the initial setup is to set up a user profile. Now, a lot of people will only have one user profile. It's tied to your Microsoft account. But if you have an Office 365 business subscription, you might want to set up a second profile like I've done here with personal and work. So you can switch back and forth between the two profiles. It keeps your browsing history separate. It means that if you're doing something work-related, you have a lower risk of accidentally having one of your personal sites get mixed up with your work or vice versa. But you can have as many profiles as you want. And what I've done in this screenshot here is to create an anonymous profile that's not signed into any Microsoft account. And I've also configured it so that each time I sign out of that profile, it deletes my, my browser history, my cookies, and my cache. So this is a way to, if you want to do some anonymous browsing and not have any traces left on your machine, you can do that with an extra profile, or you can just use the standard personal and work profiles. Step number 3 is to set up sync. Now, this of course requires that you be signed in with either a Microsoft account or an Azure AD account. But as you can see from the switches here, you can sync your favorites across devices. You can sync your settings. So like, how you have your homepage set up, for example, and things like extensions will automatically migrate between your devices so that if you, if you have a Mac and a PC, or you have a laptop and a desktop, or this even works on mobile devices, all of your settings will sync between them as long as you're signed in with the same account. One thing to note here, by the way, is that I've turned off the switch for synchronizing passwords and things like addresses. And I'll get to the reason why for that in just a minute. Step number 4, and this is really one of the big reasons why people might want to use the new Microsoft Edge instead of Google Chrome, is, Google's business model is based on knowing as much about you as possible and then using that information to tailor information for you and to sell advertising based on what it knows about you. Some people get a little uncomfortable about that. And so what the developers of the new Edge have done is to build in a feature called tracking prevention. And what tracking prevention does is it lets you choose one of these 3 settings: basic, balanced, or strict. And depending on the settings that you choose here, third-party trackers won't be able to save any information about you. Now, as you can see in this example, I've chosen the strict setting, and that acts very much like an ad blocker. Basically, if I go to a page, the only ads that I see are ads that are placed there by the site itself. I see very few third-party ads. Unfortunately, if you choose the strict setting, that also means that some pages are going to break, and you're going to get a lot of those warnings from sites saying, please turn off your ad blocker to help support us. If that's you, go back to the default balanced setting, or you can even go all the way down to basic. And if you don't want to use this feature at all, you can just take that switch up there at the top and just slide it to the left and turn tracking prevention off. Okay. Step number 5 is to add extensions. Now, I know anybody who's been using Google Chrome for any length of time probably has at least a few and maybe a lot of browser extensions. They add all sorts of capabilities to the browser, and you can see from the example here that I use extensions in Edge as well. I have a password manager here. I've got extensions for Microsoft Office and for OneNote, and a few other things there. But I'll call attention to those little red arrows that I drew at the bottom, because a lot of the objections that people had to the old legacy Edge was that it didn't have enough extensions. And it may be that the Google Chrome extensions that you use aren't in the Microsoft Store. And so if that happens, all you have to do is go down to the lower left and slide that switch to say, allow extensions from other stores, and then go over just to the right of that switch and click the convenient link that the Edge developers put and go straight to the Chrome Web Store, find the extensions that you need, download them, and install them in your Edge browser. So it will act very much like the Chrome setup that you've grown accustomed to using. Step 6 is to get your passwords under control. Now, I've got a much longer article that I did about this. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, about whether it's okay to use the password manager that's built into a browser like Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. Personally, I don't want to use the built-in password manager. I prefer a third-party program. Relatively unsophisticated users, who don't want to deal with a third-party password manager, or people who, just don't have that many passwords might want to do this. But in either case, you should go to this page and either set it up so that you can use it, or turn it off so that you can use your third-party password manager. Okay, step 7 is to customize the new tab page. Now, this might not look like the one that you have on your home page if you sign in using a Microsoft account or a local account. And the reason I showed this screen here is because I'm using a profile that's signed in with an Office 365 business account. And when you use that kind of a profile, you get some extra options that give you Office 365 focused page layouts for the new tab page. And as you can see here, it shows me some documents that I've worked with recently so that I can open them immediately in my browser and start editing them again. But if your screen doesn't look like this, there's nothing wrong with your browser. It just means that you're signed in with a different Microsoft account. By the way, if you don't want any of this Microsoft stuff on your new tab page, you're going to have to go get a third-party extension to design it, because you get 3 options here. One of which has news headlines from Microsoft. The other one has a very nice, picture of the day from Bing. And the other one is a very minimal one, but it still has a search box that uses Bing and can't be configured for Google. But there's lots of options in the extension stores for you to replace that if you want something different. Okay. Step number 8, this is one of the coolest features. It's something that exists in Google Chrome as well, but I think the Edge developers have implemented it very well. You can take pages that are designed to be self-contained, like Twitter, which I'm showing here, and you can pin them as apps, or you can install them as apps. So instead of being pinned in the browser as a tab, they go into their own window. And as you can see here, there's nothing there to suggest that this is part of a browser. This is in its own window. It has its own icon on the Windows taskbar, or if you're doing this on a Mac, in the Mac dock. And for all intents and purposes, it acts just like it were a standalone app. And the reason I like doing this for things like Twitter and Facebook and Gmail and my bank and brokerage accounts is that I hate having those important sites get lost in the tabs on my browser. So this allows me to keep track of them right on the taskbar. There's an app menu on the browser menu, and I've pointed out here the little 3-dot menu that you can point to that allows you to treat this like an app. But it's a really, really cool feature, and I recommend that people use it when for apps like the one I've described. Step number 9, if you're going to be concerned about third-party tracking, you should be concerned about first-party tracking too. And so that means adjust your privacy settings as they relate to Microsoft and what information you're giving from the browser to Microsoft. Now, these settings are available if you have Edge installed on the Mac. There's a couple of switches at the top that you can turn off or on, and those send information about how you use the browser, whether it crashes or has any problems with it. If you're doing that on Windows 10, those settings are controlled by Windows itself, and so you can see the little link there to take you to the Windows Diagnostic Data settings where you can make that adjustment. And then after you make that change, then you have to click the restart button here. Then down at the bottom, there's another switch that I've turned off that Microsoft says you can improve your web experience by allowing Microsoft to use your browsing history from this account. And if you don't want them to use your browsing history to personalize stuff and give you ads, then you can just turn that switch off, and your privacy settings are respected. And finally, the last step is perhaps the coolest feature of all in the new Edge. It's, we're all used to saving our favorite websites as links, and they go into your favorites or your bookmarks folder or whatever you want to call it. But Edge adds this new feature called collections. And so collections are sort of like a folder full of shortcuts, full of bookmarks, but you can do other things as well. For example, you see how I've selected that block of text there? I can just drag that block of text, as I did, into the collections window on the right, and boom, it saves that little block of text in my collection. I can add a note at the top, as I've done, and I can just drag links from the, I could just say add the current page, or I can drag links right off of the page into the collection. But it basically allows me to do really great research projects and save exactly what I want to save. And then when I'm done with that, I can come back to it anytime. I can keep working with it. I can open all the tabs at once, but I can also copy it out to Word or copy it into an Excel worksheet and share it with other people. So a very cool feature called Collections. And that's the 10-step program for getting yourself started with the new Microsoft Edge.
All right, Ed, that was a great list, very informative. Thanks for sharing that. And I know you've got this all included in one big article. And like we said earlier, we've actually talked about this, and you've had, a couple different articles where we've been discussing this changeover.
Yeah, the web is, we live and work in the web
Yep.
all day, every work day, and even when we're not working, we're living in the web. So anything that can make us, make ourselves more productive and more organized with this stuff, so we're not floundering around in a web browser. That's a good day for me.
Yeah, absolutely, and for many others. All right, well, we hope you guys will check out that list of 10 steps that will help you to make that changeover. Ed, again, thank you for that, and we appreciate all of you watching and checking out ZDNet.